Hi guys, Julie Asher. I'm back trying my live for a second time. As you may have noticed, I've been posting lots of competition videos to Facebook and Instagram recently, and most of those have been pre-recorded with sponsors and past competitors. Today we're taking a slightly different tack. As I said, we are live, so this will be an opportunity for you to ask any lingering questions about my competition in real time and get real-time answers. I've got a very special guest with me here today. Our focus as well will be on the judging process. Each of our previous videos from last week focused on slightly different things, so I do encourage you to go look at them. Each special guest wears a slightly different hat related to the competition and so has different points of emphasis in those videos, which may be very helpful to you either as a new entrant or as a returning entrant. Before I introduce today's special guest, I just want to pause and make sure that I am actually recording, see if there are any comments out there. I do not see any, so hopefully everything's going A-okay. And okay, so no comments. I'm assuming we're doing fine. So I'm going to proceed. I just want to say a few words about my competition for those not familiar with it before I introduce our special guest. My competition is called Julia M. Usher's Cookie Art Competition. This was a name given to it by Carrie Vincent, who first hosted my competition at her show many years ago. The competition has taken place in different forms. Originally it was in person at the Oklahoma State Sugar Art Show. It's moved to various venues. We've also held it online. This is the third year in a row that we'll be having it online, and that's cool for a number of reasons. A, we can gather entrants from all over the globe. Anyone, anywhere is welcome to join the fun and learning. It also makes the competition unique in a couple of respects, and that's what I want to talk about. First, it makes it very low risk. So if you're a new entrant, a little bit timid about putting your piece out in front of the world, you're not actually doing that. You'll be creating a piece to the competition's theme, so a piece that's unique to the competition, related to the theme and which follows the competition rules. Then you'll be taking a number of photographs of it, typically about 10 to 12, and a short video, and uploading those to secure databases. Once those entries get into the database, I disguise them. So the only person that knows you put it there will be me. Our judges actually look at all the entries blind, meaning they don't know who created what. And we'll get to that a little bit when I talk about the judging process. So it's very low risk in that regard. It's an easy way to get your foot in the door with competing. It's also low risk in the sense that you're not transporting an entry all the way across the country to put it on a competition table somewhere. I used to be in the habit of saying, 90% of competing is getting your entry on the table. But in this case, you don't have to worry about the transport risks. The prizes in my competition are also huge. Thanks to 17 sponsor companies, we hit a record number of prizes this year, some 25,500 in prizes. That is composed of cash, about 9,000 of which, and digital certificates and coupons, which can be used anywhere in the world. Again, making the prizes really something that's valuable to anyone, anywhere. But most important, my competition, really any competition, is about learning and growth. You enter a competition to challenge yourself, to try new things that maybe your customers aren't asking you to do, to really step out of your comfort zone. My competition in particular is very much focused on learning and growth, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And that's because I've assembled what I believe is one of the premier collection of judges, cookie judges out there. I have judges from all walks of cookie life, each of whom has demonstrated mastery in one or more subject areas within cookies, and each of whom has either competed extensively or judged extensively or both. So they're really well positioned to give great feedback on your cookie submissions. I also pride myself on the quality of feedback we give. Because the competition's online, we're not in a hurry to dash out feedback to people before the show ends. We actually will take a week to 3 weeks, depending on how many requests for feedback we get, to collate all of the judges' input and to put it together into something that's really meaningful and helpful to you. So you'll find your scores and how they stack up relative to everybody else on average in your category, as well as lots of constructive input from the judges as to what you did well and areas where you might improve. So because learning and growth is really paramount to my competition and the judging process is fundamental to ensuring that that happens, today we're going to be focused on that, and we're going to be doing that with the help of one of my expert judges, which after that long introduction brings me to her. Moving to the next slide. Hi, Beatriz.
Hi, Julia. How are you?
Good. I think there's a little bit of a lag. Your audio is in sync with mine, but your voice isn't moving in sync, but that's okay. I think we can work with that. Anyway, quick introduction to Beatriz, and then I'm going to turn it over to her to introduce herself more fully and to share some of her insights, not only about judging, but also about competing, because she's done both extensively. Beatriz competed in this cookie art competition in the Advanced Master category back in 2021 and won with this incredible 3D mixer. She is world renowned for her gingerbread art. So she is our 3D cookie expert amongst our team. You'll see some of our other judges pictured to the left. As I said, they each bring distinctive expertise to the competition. Sandy Beltran's an expert painter. Laura Saporiti also paints and does extreme piping work, as does Stephanie Capel. So I feel we've got a really well-rounded team that's well-equipped to comment on just about any entry and to comment very intelligently. So Beatriz, though, again, is our 3D expert. She'll be talking a bit about what she looks for in 3D cookies as well as 2D cookies today. She's also competed, won the Gingerbread Cookie Challenge Food Network a couple of years ago. And amongst other things, she's a judge for my competition, but she's also a gold sponsor. So maybe she'll tell us a little bit about her prizes today. And as I said, a past competitor. So she wears multiple hats related to my competition. I'm thrilled to have her here. So I'm going to turn it over now and let her more fully introduce herself, because I am absolutely positive I left a number of things out. So good morning, Beatriz.
Good morning. So I guess a lot of the viewers will know that I specialize in 3D gingerbread or cookie structures that are and with that uses a lot of edible supports and the illusion of a gravity-defying architecture. Sorry. So this is my specialty. I build very complex structures. So I've been competing so many years already. I started with wedding cakes competitions way back. At the beginning, I didn't place, but I learned so much from the judges' feedback that after I think it was a couple of years, I started placing and winning these competitions. But after a while, I kind of needed a new challenge. That's when I started entering the National Gingerbread House Competition in North Carolina. And so I got myself really deep into big, cookies, 3D cookie competitions. These were really big structures, by the way. For me, it was an easy transition because I was already doing a lot of 3D toppers, cake toppers for my business using cookies. So it's just I went a little bigger, obviously, and slowly over the years, starting introducing a lot of like structural techniques to build all this complex. If you've seen my work, you will see a lot of my pieces have overhanging structures, and people, if you win the winners of this competition, we get to learn those secrets of how to make those structures that they look that defy gravity, right?
So you're giving away, explain that a little bit. So you're giving away some classes, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So it's the classes are highly focused on structural support with edible supports and how to build with I don't use construction gingerbread or or any construction type cookie is all soft honey gingerbread cookies mostly, to make my builds. So there is a whole technique behind it, and this is what I will be teaching. So that your structure, whatever you make as a 3D, is totally edible. Like you can actually eat it without breaking your teeth, right? So
Okay. So some people will wish they won those classes before entering this year's competition, but if they win this year and get them, they'll be all the more equipped for next year's competition.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, competing, it's always been for me, like Julia said, is part of learning. When you enter a competition, you kind of push yourself to do it, because sometimes you know what happens. You say, "Oh, I'm gonna learn this skill," or "I'm gonna try to master these skills," but because you put it off unless you have a commitment. In competitions, I always found that it is a commitment to actually get myself going with this. You know, like it does take many hours, and it's a huge commitment, especially if, you know, like you have a family, your work. You have to take you a lot of hours to develop these new skills or these new ideas that you have, right? Which
Yeah,
is art.
I think, it all depends on what you want to put into it. The good news with our competition, there's still almost 2 months to go before entries are due. Entries aren't due until June 30th, so people have plenty of time to
Plenty of
create.
time, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it is plenty of time. I create those huge pieces that you see for the gingerbread competitions in less than 2 months. So yeah, it's plenty of time.
so let's pause here, unless you have something more to add about your background, Beatrice, and see if there are any questions from anybody. Questions, folks? I don't see any coming in. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and proceed to the next slide. Beatrice is going to talk a little bit about, she's going to have her competitor hat on here, and she's going to talk a little bit about how you get started with a competition. This is particularly helpful for beginners who may have not competed before. Like, how do you go about structuring, creating an entry? And she's going to share some of her tips for that, what has worked for her in the past. So let me move to, let me move to that slide. I'll come back to our judging process at the very end, because it's a little bit, it's a little more technical, and I think people will want to hear from Beatrice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so how the start, I guess most entrants registrants will have an idea of what they want to create. They can visualize it and put it in a piece of paper, or just make a rough drawing and go for it right before start baking. But sometimes when it comes to 3D cookie builds, you have a lot of people may have trouble or difficulty sizing their builds, right? And to make it proportional and balanced. Because sometimes, you do have an idea, and then how do you put it together? How do you size it? Before you start actually baking, so you don't lose a lot of time and make a lot of mistakes, right? When it comes to that, I think that the best is that it works for most people that begins to build 3D structures is to make the piece out of cardboard. So you have a visual in case you need to support the cookie, let's say. You also have a visual of your proportions. You may find that one of the cookies is oversized, or it doesn't look balanced with the whole in the whole piece. So you have time to adjust it accordingly. You can also use the same cardboard as template later on, right? That's one of the I think that's the best way to start a little 3D structures that are a little more complex. And so the other thing that I do when creating for this, it works. It has always worked for myself. Is I make a visual or a mental, not so much a visual. I make a mental notes of the skills that I'm really good at, the skills that I am very comfortable working with, and then the ones that I would like to learn or master or challenge myself while doing this piece. So I do design the piece around those skills. So because of what I have found when judging, um, like gingerbread or cookie entries, is sometimes people add skills to the piece just because they wanted to add another skill, but it kind of looks out of place sometimes, right? So the best in for me it works like that. What are the skills that I'm really good at? Uh, and then design the piece around those skills. I will include a skill that I want to master or I want to learn it's not so much as a main focus, but it would be a detail just in case it doesn't come out that right? So it's just a details. It's another skill that you include to your piece without being the focal point of your entry, right?
Can I
So
interject for 1 sec? That's all good tips. I would say also, like, one of the very first things people should do, even before they start sketching or making templates, is to go to the rules and read them thoroughly. Also look at the judging criteria, because you'll see how your piece is going to be evaluated and how much points we allocate to certain things. And so that's just good backdrop to have in mind. If you're interested in winning, I think most people are, to know how the judges are going to evaluate your piece should somehow be incorporated into what you do. So we definitely reward for people trying a broad range of techniques, as Beatriz said, but we also want to make sure those techniques work together cohesively, that they're balanced and the overall piece is visually appealing. So you'll see a criterion for that as well. Sometimes, as Beatriz said, you can kind of go overboard incorporating too many techniques just to incorporate them, and we want to make sure that you always put that reality check on your piece to make sure that the design is cohesive and appealing. So I would say start with those rules. They're in the competition overview post on Cookie Connection, and once this live is over, we'll post a link to that underneath this video. There are 7 criteria for 2D cookie and 9 for 3D cookie. And you'll want to make sure that your entry somehow addresses each of those criteria. Also, just to back up, you can compete in 2D cookie, which are traditional flat cookies. You can compete in 3D. We've been using that term a lot today, but that's basically constructed cookies. We also have a beginner intermediate category and advanced master skill level category within each. So we award to first, second, and third place winners in each of 4 areas: beginner intermediate 2D, beginner intermediate 3D, advanced master 2D, and advanced master 3D. So if you think about that 25,000 in prizes, it gets divided by 12 people. So the chances of winning big, if you win, are good. Even beginners are going to come home with ample prizes. We do have a couple of questions, so let me throw those in there, and then we'll continue what we had prepared on this particular point. Maytha asks, do you use any software in terms of visualizing your entry, Beatriz? And where do you look for inspiration?
Oh, no, I do not use software. I'm old fashioned. I just, draw in a piece of paper. I use graph paper actually, because, my mind works with math. I'm very comfortable with it. That's why I do architecture, because I'm really good with that part of my brain, right? So no, but I know a lot of people do, and it's actually good because it will help you with sizing. Let's say you wanna make a birdhouse with birds and whatnot, right? This is it looks it's not really that simple, because you still have the pitch of the roof, let's say. You still need those measurements and that they are right, because there's several, the roof will have several cookies and the angles will have to match. So if you use your computer to do that, that's great. Why not, right? So I'm old fashioned. What was the other question? Sorry.
The other
And
question,
my inspiration, yes.
yes.
Yes, my inspiration. Inspiration again for me, it's always been like I look at buildings. My strength is piping, so anything that is, like Baroque or Rococo, like anything that the Victorian style design, that is my thing. I just love it, and I don't know. Sometimes I go to buy fabric, and I see a lace, and I take a picture of the lace, because I will try to replicate it with royalizing. Those are the visuals. I'm constantly looking at things, and those are visuals. And see, a lot of people have more of our earthly. If you have an earthly design, that you love those designs, then you will look at nature, right? For me, it's all the fine details, a lot of architecture, a lot of lace things, anything that can be transferred to royalizing, really, right? It's basically the arts, the timeless art. That's where I draw my inspiration.
So I'm going to elaborate on that question, an answer to that question as it relates particularly to this competition. Where do you look for inspiration? Just to remind people, the entries to this competition need to be related to the theme of the competition, which is your Eras Tour. It's kind of a riff on what Taylor Swift is doing. We want you and your cookies to represent the most important era or eras in your life, those moments in time that are really important to you. We don't want you doing Taylor Swift imagery or any copyrighted material. What we want you to do is look for inspiration within you and your life and depict those moments in cookies. So I think very much in the case of this competition, the source of inspiration is going to be your own life and experiences. And I would also say, don't look too externally, particularly don't look at Taylor Swift imagery or any copyrighted imagery of any kind, because we don't allow copied materials in the competition. So just as far as general competition inspiration tips. Any other questions from those watching? I don't see any. Anything to add, Beatriz, to how to get started on your entry? Or should we move on to the next topic, which is the kinds of things that judges most appreciate in entries? You ready to move on?
Yes, I guess we could. Yes.
Okay, so switching slides is taking a little energy from my computer. It takes a little bit of time, so there might be a little bit of a lag here. So bear with me. We're moving on to the next slide. What sets an entry apart? And then my computer seems to be working. Hopefully it will kick into gear again soon. Beatriz, are you hearing me fine at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so let's keep going. I guess it's still recording. My computer is cycling here, doing some strange things. There we go. It's back to normal. Okay, so what sets an entry apart? Let's speak about this in the context of my competition. In particular, as you're evaluating entries coming into this competition, what's really going to distinguish an entry to you, Beatriz? And every judge is going to have a slightly different perspective on this, but I will say we do have predefined criteria. So they will determine your initial score. We'll come to the judging process later. But we do have a second stage of the judging process where all the judges get together after judging independently to kind of review how things stacked up. And this is oftentimes where we'll have the discussion about, well, really, we'll have discussions about entries that might come very, very close in numerical score. And we'll talk about, if there's at all a question, which one should move forward. And this is where this question of what sets an entry apart comes most into play in our judging process, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Well, in this competition, I think interpretation of theme will be the first thing that will set like an entry apart. There's so many ways to interpret this theme because it's very personal, but there will be some that will just pop up, right? Like you look at it and it will say, oh wow, this is something totally new, a new take of interpreting your own life or your own, in this case, if you focus your areas in cookie making, let's say, or into the sugar arts in general, right? For me, I think a piece has to be really clean because I am like that when I compete. I try to make sure there's nothing that it looks untidy. So for example, if you're gonna glue with royal icing, make sure you wipe any excess off. The worst thing is seeing those little blobs of sugar sticking out. It looks very, very untidy. Another thing, cookies, you make your own templates here. There's no cookie cutter, so the edges will be most likely be rough. Make sure those are nice and neat, that they're sanded or covered or royalized on top. Any rough edges, the whole entry looks very untidy. So make sure you cover those, or make sure that they are smooth. At least they're smooth. This is, again, that's what I was looking for. Creative ways of applying techniques, like with royal icing, like use mixed media to create textures. I like to see movement with different sugar edible medium, really. There's one more. Well, the attention to detail. It's piped designs. I like to see pipe designs, intricate details that they're very neat. And when it comes to 3D construction, I would love to see meter corners. Like not cookies glue like parallel to each other, but those corners, like really sharp, really neat corners. Maybe if sometimes in 3D construction, it's nice to see the cookie part of the cookie, not everything covered. So it's a way for me to see how you work your dough. That is also smooth, it doesn't have a lot of cracks. Like that's part of a 3D construction. If you're going to use support, if you use edible support, is way better. It will be, like edible supports could be so many ways. You can use isomat, post, or pastiche, or cinnamon sticks, anything that is strong enough that you can support your pieces. Pasta, like the thick pastas are also used for supports. They're edible, and like you can paint it with royal icing, cover it. It's part of it. And obviously, if you're going to bite it, it's kind of going to be hard, but at least you're not, it's not a piece of wood. I think it's support like that is very important. And the board, please make your board pretty, like very creative, because it's nice to have just a simple board and the cookie comes alive. But you know, um, the board is part of creating. It's the show. It's what how you show your cookies, right? So
Mhm.
yeah. So that's I think that would what it's the best way to describe how I will look, what I will look for
Mhm.
when
Yeah,
looking at an entry.
and I would, though I'm not judging in this competition because I am administering the competition and seeing the entries as they come in. I'll know who created what. Um, so I won't be judging, I'll just be managing the judges. However, if I were judging, I would say what we tend to value as a team, and this is reflected in large part in the judging criteria as well, are originality. So something that
Mhm.
comes across as really creative, and this is exactly what Beatriz said. You know, it might be a creative use of a technique. It might be a really creative or original interpretation of the theme. It might be a creative construction that uses completely edible supports. So we're looking for something that really kind of stands out as unique. Um, and to that end, again, I'll just say that the more you look within for inspiration, the more you look at the skills that you have, what resonates with you personally with respect to the theme, the more likely you're to be creative. In my opinion, the more you look at external sources or imagery, you can tend to draw too heavily on them, and then your work can start looking derivative. So I would just encourage you to be, as true to yourself as possible as you march through the competition and creating. One word on edible supports for the 3D category. We do allow inedible supports if they are visible, and if they are visible in the construction to the judges without taking the entry apart. So like if you had to do a cookie pop, for instance, and you had it sticking out and we could see the stick and we were able to theoretically remove it before someone were to eat the piece, it's allowed. However, as Beatriz said, that can be done with something edible probably just as easily. So if you can find
Yes.
creative ways to get rid of all those inedible supports, your entries in the 3D category is going to be that much more impressive. So
Yeah.
we do not allow any inedible supports that are hidden, however, and we do not allow inedible supports directly on the cookies in any other way, and inedible materials directly on the cookies in any other way. And again, all this is in the rules, in the competition overview, so if you miss it in this video, you can just print those out and read them. And as I said, I think that's really the best place to start. Okay, so any other questions? Oh, there was a question. Must the 2D cookies be completely flat? So by 2D cookie, and again, it's defined in the competition overview. By 2D cookie, we mean a cookie, the cookie's part of it is flat or presented either laying down. You can also present it upright, maybe on easels or whatever. And the cookie might have dimension to it. It might have dimension through the addition of dimensional piping, fondant appliques, royal icing transfers. So it doesn't need to be completely flat. It can have some dimension by virtue of the stuff you put on top of it. What makes a 2D cookie different from a 3D cookie is that a 3D cookie, by our definition, is a constructed cookie project, more or less. It's got to have a minimum of 12 cookies in it put together in some creative way. And it should be freestanding once it's constructed. So 2D cookies are what you'd think of typically. If you have dimensional elements in them, they do not go in the 3D category. The 3D category is, again, a built piece comprised of multiple cookies. So hopefully that's clear. And again, the definition will be in the competition overview. And I'm also just an email away if anyone ever has questions about what anything means in that competition overview. Now, we talked a lot about what sets an entry apart: creativity, originality, trying some new things. But overall, ensuring a clean, crisp aesthetic is extremely important. I really like that point, Beatriz. Let's talk a little bit about the flip side, things that we wish people would avoid. I'm just gonna start here by saying I really it really disappoints me when people don't spend time reading the rules and something lands in a category, like
Yeah.
something lands in a 3D category that's really a 2D cookie. Um, avoid that. If you're going to go to the time to create an entry, just make sure that you're putting it in the right place. Likewise, if the cookie doesn't relate to the theme in any evident way, it's that's really that's really perplexing to the judges, and that does happen. You'll see one of the judging criteria is the connection to the theme. That may not be immediately obvious from looking at your piece, but there's also an area on your entry form where you can describe how you interpreted the theme. So if you think your piece might not shout its connection to the theme quite obviously to the judges, you have an opportunity also to clarify it. So, but what I like people to avoid is just having no clear connection to the theme, either visually or in that written description. And we've gotten that before. We don't allow the submission of old work. It's got to be new and related to the competition. So those are kind of my key kind of pet peeves. And I'm going to stop here and turn over to Beatrice for additional thoughts.
Yeah. So reading the rules is the first thing that you have to do is please read the rules and follow follow them to the T, because those are the first mistake that people do. When it comes to 3D construction, for those who want to do, even if it's just for beginners, right? Don't try not to use chocolate or hot sugar to glue your pieces together, because they do glue pretty fast, and then you cannot adjust it, right? So if you happen to glue it crooked or it's not in the right place, you kind of have to start all over again, because the cookie will break if you want to take apart two cookies that are glued with hot sugar. So use royal icing or any other medium that you think you can that gives you time. I think royal icing for me is the best, because it gives you time to adjust it to the position that you want, and then let it set, right, and let it dry. And if you are not happy with it, it's easy to take it apart, clean it up, and start over without having to make a new cookie. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people do with 3D is gluing the pieces with the wrong medium. The other thing is it was actually suggested to me, and I think it's a great idea. Just take a picture of your piece and look at the details, or any bad details, or any inconsistency that you see through the camera's eye, because the camera picks up a lot of things. Like sometimes you're working on your piece, and you have to kind of take some time away from it, and to see the details. But if you take a picture and then a few hours later you look at it, you will really see what we will see, right? So if you see that there is it's not neat and it's not tidy, oh, this corner needs adjusting, you will see, the camera will show you, and then you go back to it and try to correct it before you submit your last pictures. Another thing to avoid, I think, is when you learn a new skill, you're learning a new skill, but you're not 100% sure, and you make that skill the focal point of your cookie, and it's not 100%. So focus, your main focal point should be your strength first, in have anything that you learned as a detail in your design. So in 3D cookie, there's a lot of molding. You can bake your cookie dough in molds, and you have perfect finishes. Sure, I think it's great if you use molds to add detail to your piece, but don't make your whole piece the mold. because there's nothing to it, right? Even if you paint it and you decorate it, it's still a mold. There's no construction behind it. And when it comes to 3D, the skill is in the construction part of it. So yeah, I think that those are the main things. I think what to avoid. There's so many things but I guess it's not following the rules. That's the main one. And just like Julia said, try to uh, that it shows that your piece shows the theme that you're asking, because otherwise it's maybe you make a beautiful piece but there's nothing related to the theme, and you kind of it would be a shame that you don't place because of that.
Right. And we have in the 2D category, as I said, there's 7 judging criteria. One is relationship to the theme. That gets a full 10 points out of the 70. Same thing with 3D.
Yeah.
Theme is one criteria, gets a full 10 points out of the 90. So having something completely unrelated to theme could really throw you out of the running almost immediately. I would add, take your time with it. Beatriz hit on this in one way. She said, take your time with your entry. When you're done with it, don't just immediately upload it to the site. Pause, step back, look at it, make sure it's well balanced, and that it views beautifully as a whole, particularly if it's 3D. But also if it's 2D, we're looking at the composition and the arrangement of the cookies relative to one another too. Give yourself time to do that reality check of it. You'll find and take a picture of it. You might see some flaws that come through the camera. You might see an area that's a little top heavy that needs adjustment, whatever. But allow yourself that time in your process. I think a lot of people work up to the very end and don't do that. The good news is you have to take photos to submit your entry. You're submitting photos of your entry, so you're going to have to go through that camera step anyway, and it's going to reveal a lot. But give yourself an opportunity to look at those first phases of photos and make adjustments before taking the final ones. And avoid a last-minute upload, I would say. This is a benefit of registering now. When you register, which is just paying your entry fee on Eventbrite, you will gain access to the entry databases. So you can physically go into the databases, navigate through them, look at what you need to enter and how you're going to enter it. And I think gaining that familiarity before you even start the upload process is going to save some maybe anxiety at the end. You don't want to be rushing to upload and find you have an internet issue. So I encourage you to do that sooner rather than later. Any questions at this point? I do not see any. I'm going to go back to the slide I skipped earlier, which I probably should have talked about at the outset, which is just how do we judge? Because we don't really want that to be a mystery to anyone. As I said, I encourage people to look at the judging criteria because they can help you design your piece. You'll know what things we really emphasize and what we're looking for, and that can help you in the design process. So I don't want any of this to be a mystery, and I don't want it to be a mystery because I want people to have clear expectations coming in, and I want them to feel clearly evaluated and fairly evaluated at the end. I mean, we want people to walk out of this process feeling like they've received, they've had a really good experience, they've learned a lot, and they've received fair and constructive feedback. So I just want to talk about a couple of things that we do with our judging that are somewhat unique to us. Some of them are unique to us. Some of them are done in other competitions. But we have these procedures because I think they impart impartiality and also fairness to the process. So as I said earlier, because the competition is online, somebody needs to administer the entries and oversee their entry into the databases, and that person is me. So I will not be judging because I will know your name will be attached to your entry when it first comes in. You'll be asked to put your name and some contact information with it. However, before the judges ever see it, I assign your entry a number. I put that number on your entry, and I mask any identifying information on your entry. So by the time the judges see your entry, all they see is a number associated with it. And I'm the only one that knows the relationship between the numbers and the people. Why do we do that? We do that to ensure impartiality, or at least to increase the chances of it. We don't want somebody's personal opinion of a cookie decorator to influence how they might evaluate the piece, for instance. Not all competitions do this. Many do, but not all. And so we do even do that with the competition being online. The other thing we require is that no one post their work in process or their finished entries to social media before judging is complete. Again, social media is a wide open environment and our judges are on social media. So if they see your piece before it's entered and judged, again, it eliminates the impartiality from the competition. In that case, if we were to see it and know whose it was, we think pretty seriously about eliminating it from the competition. So you absolutely don't want to do that. And again, this is written in the competition overview in the rules. We do blind judging, as I said. By blind judging, it's just what I described, that the judges do not know who created a piece throughout the entire judging process. And in fact, I don't reveal the names of the winners to them until they're announced online, just so that that's a surprise to everybody. We do have predefined judging criteria to make the process as objective as possible. So we're not just sitting down in a group saying, hey, I really love that. This entry's clean. This one tried a lot of different techniques. No, we actually have predefined judging criteria with predefined point allocations. So the first step of the judging process involves every judge taking those criteria and scoring each entry against each one. They do that independently without talking to one another. And we do that so that we're sure that everybody's opinion is equally heard. Some judges tend to look at things a little differently than others. We don't all look for the same things. So this way, we don't come together. We don't have a loud judge, an opinionated judge, talking over somebody that might have a strong opinion, but less likely to push it. So all the scores come into me. In the first stage, I calculate the numerical scores and I see how everybody stacks up. And I'll note things like, okay, there are a couple people that are tied, or these entries are super duper close. They're like a fraction of a point apart. Or, Beatriz scored this one really high and Stephanie didn't feel so fondly of it, so there's quite a divergence in scores. I'll make notes of those kinds of discrepancies. And we'll then get together as a group and talk about them. I'll point them out, we'll hash them out, and if there are particular, fine points or calls to be made, that's when those decisions get made. Typically, though, we tend to rely on the numbers. We tend not to have too many discrepancies, and we don't have too much of that sorting out to do. But we like to have that second step in the event that the numbers show us a close call or something that is harder to sort through. The other thing we do is have predefined point deductions. If a rule's been violated, we don't just arbitrarily say, okay, we're going to take 20 points off for this for one person and 10 points off if another person does it. No. If a rule has not been followed, we'll make note of it and everybody gets the same point deduction across their total if they haven't followed that rule. So those point deductions are also applied very systematically and fairly, in our opinion. So feedback, so the judging process, it sounds kind of rigid and systematic, maybe a little bit scary, but actually I think all those procedures are in place to make it so fair and to make it hopefully less scary to you. You know what you're walking into and you know that we take it really, really seriously. Likewise, we also take the feedback process seriously. Feedback does need to be requested because for each feedback form, or it's not really a form, I submit like a feedback document. It's a few pages that each person gets. It might take me a couple of hours to collate each one. So it does need to be requested. I don't want to put it together for someone who doesn't want it. But what it will consist of is your scores, your individual scores on each of the criteria, as compared to the average of the entire group. So if you competed in the 2D cookie category, beginner, intermediate, your scores would be compared to everybody else who competed in that group. So you can quickly see where you did really well and where you had areas to improve just on a numerical basis. And then that's all supported with comments from the judges. We'll have an area where we talk about things you did really well, which will correlate to those areas where you scored highly, or they should, if we did our jobs correctly. And then we'll have an area where you can improve. One thing we do take extra care on we don't just point out like areas where you could improve or things we didn't like. We'll often suggest what we might have done differently, what we think would have been a better choice. You may not always agree with us, but we'll provide kind of the action, not just the corrective comment. So these feedback documents, if you will, are also infused with a lot of helpful tips, which will hopefully take your decorating to the next level. So that's a bit about the process. Beatrice, did you have anything to add to that?
I just want to say that, like I said at the very beginning, the judges' input, it helps you so much to grow as a sugar artist, or like a 3D cookie art, cake art, sugar art in general, because it helps you to improve. At least it did for me. I took those inputs so seriously, and I followed them through, and here I am. So it does help you, it helps you a lot. So and it's a way of learning. It's important to see what they, like what you did wrong, or how would you do, the judges who would have done it differently, because it makes you see a different angle, right? And you don't really, you take it as part of your growth. And it's, I think it's so important. It was for me, and I think it's for everybody that has competed.
Yeah, I agree. Tony has a comment here. I sure hope we will have the opportunity to go back and watch this video later. My Wi-Fi is just incapable this morning. Mine's being a little tricky this morning too. I apologize. There's some lags and such in the recording. However, as soon as we go offline, this video should be posted to my Facebook page. I will also be uploading it to YouTube and posting the YouTube version of it to Cookie Connection. So Cookie Connection is the home base for the competition. Cookie Connection is my community-based site. If you go there to the blog and look under Julia M. Usher's Cookie Art Competition, there's a category in the blog. There's also a link to it directly on the homepage. You'll see all the blog posts about the competition, and I'll be posting a replay of this video into one of those blog posts that'll probably post later tonight. So, and we've had a number of other ones, as I said at the start of this presentation, over the course of the last week or two, and they're all posted in there already. So you can go back and review them all. You can also see videos from previous years in there. We've got some great videos that were made in earlier competitions. All are full of interesting and good advice. So let me just move to our last slide, which is simply this one. Do you guys have any more questions for us? You've been a little bit quiet this morning, and we are here. We will probably have another live Q&A before entries are due, but there aren't going to be that many more. So this is a great opportunity to get our off-the-cuff reactions to questions you might have lingering, or to readdress points made in this presentation that weren't clear. It's early morning for me, and it's not really early morning. It's 11 o'clock, but I go to bed extremely late. I'm a night owl, so I'm still a little groggy, haven't had my morning coffee, so I'm sure there's some things that I said that were a little less than clear. So we are here to address anything. Hi, Tina. I don't see questions. So with that said, I'm going to just remind people that I'm just an email away, sweetlife@juliausher.com. If you do have more questions, a good place to put questions also is under the competition overview post. Again, I'll get a link to that under this video on my Facebook page. That competition overview post has all the rules. It has a link to the registration form. And if you put a comment under there, I'm most sure to see it most quickly. And I can address it there so that everybody has the benefit of viewing the answer, which is helpful to me sometimes. If it's a really personal question about your choice of theme, or more often I get questions about what category, skill level classification someone belongs in. Am I beginner, intermediate, or am I advanced master? Those tend to be kind of personal. Feel free to email me with that and I can help you sort through it. So just a couple of key things to remember schedule-wise. Registration is open. It's a two-step sort of entry process. First, you register, which is simply declaring your intent to enter. And to do that, you go to Eventbrite. Again, that link will be in the competition overview post. You pay a $15 USD reg fee, which actually pays my judges and pays some of my graphics costs. None of that goes into our pockets here. Everything that we collect supports the competition in some way. But that payment of that fee is really critical for a couple of reasons. As I said earlier, it's going to give you access to the entry databases, so you can literally like log into them and get into them and scroll around in them and get a feeling for how they work and what you'll need to do to upload to them. They also indicate, of course, everything you need to upload. You'll find that same upload information, though, in links at the bottom of the competition overview post. Those links say submission requirements. So you can also see what you need to enter there, but I feel like having that tangible access to the database is handy. The other reason registering now is helpful is for me personally. It's kind of a selfish motive. I have a better idea of how many people might be entering, and that allows me to plan the tail end of the judging process a little bit more accurately. So I encourage you to do that if you're thinking of entering, to do that as soon as possible. But entries are not due until June 30th, so there's still plenty of time to create. As Beatriz said, she creates her huge, towering gingerbread constructions for competitions in times less than that. So anything's possible. Yeah. She's of course advanced master, and you don't need to do something as significant as what she does. We just want you to stretch your own skills and take yourself to your next personal level. Mm-hmm. Beatriz, did you have anything to add that I missed there?
I think you have to have fun. You know, when you create, it's just the world disappears. For most people, it works like that. So this is actually having fun. Really, you know, there's nothing out there. It's just your piece are creating and making that beautiful. Just make it for yourself. You know, make a beautiful piece for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's the best advice of the day. Just have fun with it, you know?
Yeah.
If you happen to win, great. If you know, no matter what, you're going to come out a winner because you'll have had fun, you'll have pushed yourself, and you'll get great feedback.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So with that, I'm going to say thank you to Beatriz. We're so thrilled to have her on the judging team for the second year in a row. And this will be her first time judging online. She judged last year in Austin in person. But we're thrilled to have her here. We're thrilled to have her expertise, particularly in the 3D area, and just all of her wise advice today is really priceless. So thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. And have everybody have a great day or night for those who are, you know, in the other side of the world.
Exactly. Yes, and again, anyone anywhere can enter. Well, I'll be filming another video, I should say, later today. It won't be a live, but it will be with one of our international judges, a judge from Brazil, and we'll be talking a lot about the internationality of the competition, where entries come from, and how, you know, what things we do to make it easier for international entrants to enter. So if that describes you, you might want to tune into that. That will probably post by Friday of this week. Again, I'm recording it, so it won't get up immediately, but it should provide some interesting info as well. So thank you, everyone, and I'm going to finish now, and have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, Beatriz. Thank you.
Bye.